Hello and welcome to the show. This week's Downhill Chaos. We start with the Chevrolet Silverado. The front got a little bit messed up. I don't quite know what's going on. Sometimes it was loading fine, this time it didn't. So yeah, ignore the sort of... It kind of looks like the devil car going on at the front of the truck. It's a big off-road pickup truck. Along the lines of the... D-Series. And the D-Series went pretty well down here. I mean, this is a big four-wheel drive car. Has got some big, chunky off-road tyres and plenty of ground clearance. And as we've seen, ground clearance is quite important on here because of the bumps. There is a downside to having some big off-road tyres and high centre of mass, and yeah, you fall over. This is again the problem we saw with the D-Series, is that when cornering hard around some of these turns, falling over is somewhat of an issue. You've definitely got to be very aware of that with this pickup truck. It is a strong old truck as well. Next run, and again it was just on the bumps. It was bouncing, hit it a bit too hard, flipped the truck onto its side and then slid into a tree. While it has snapped the steering, the actual truck is still working. This thing could really take some punishment. It was probably one of the strongest things I've driven for a long time. This Silverado, yeah, I could get into trouble quite easily with it. I was trying to cut the corner a little bit more, because if you stay out on the dirt around this first turn, you kind of end up sliding and lose a bit of time. Whereas if you cut the corner, you get a quicker line. And I may have cut it a little bit too much. You can't cut it that much because yeah, there's a bump on the inside. Again, another instance of just getting caught on the bumps, and it was bouncing, and eventually it was just one too many bounces, and the truck tumbled over. I think that was the first time and one of the very few times I killed the truck entirely, because you can see the wheels weren't spinning. Again, another jump, and we're on the bounces some more, and we've clonked the back of it on a tree and torn off the back parts. Again, truck's fine. The suspension on this is very soft, as you will see. Now, that is good for some of the huge ruts, and there are some really nasty ruts that the vehicles have to deal with, but it's also bad for bounciness. I tried being brave through here. As you can imagine, it didn't quite go to plan. There is a big mound in the middle of the tunnel, which means while it looks like it's a fairly simple corner, it actually isn't, or a fairly simple part of the track. It really isn't. You can't be that quick through there, because the mound in the middle of it is so huge that it will throw the trucks at the ceiling, or throw the cars, whatever you're driving, will have big problems. Across these bumps here, provided you didn't get a big jump, on the most part we didn't have too many problems across there. That's what kills a lot of the sort of normal road cars, and being a big off-road truck, we didn't have problems in that respect. The problem we did have is if you hit it a slight bit too hard or at a slight wrong angle, you get fired up into the air, and often that would lead to you falling off the course. Again, amazingly, the truck was still working. It was wedged in the river, but it was actually still working. Yeah, didn't cut the corner any more times on that first turn. And I mean, around here, the truck was pretty good. It was pretty good through these turns. I didn't have too many problems. You'll see I'm taking a slightly wide exit there to try and avoid the really big dip on that particular part of the course. The hairpin, well, I couldn't handbrake it through the hairpin. If I try to handbrake or try to get any more really to the apex of that corner, you're going to roll because of the elevation changes. A big wheelie across that particular bump. This is a decent speed vehicle, this one. It's got, I think it was a V8 engine or something in the parts selector. It's got decent speed and decent four-wheel drive, so I was expecting this to be pretty quick if I could keep it off the bump. So even on this run, you saw me getting the big wheelie. And again, through here, it's just starting. Now, while I would occasionally run the inside of that corner with a road car, you can't do it in this. You can't go near the inside of that turn. The road cars can get away with it, but this you're going to get bounced out far too wide. Really make sure I get it slowed down through the tunnel, and even then, on the exit, it was a bit of a slide and a bit of a bounce from all over the place. And then it's just this final little downhill section around the corner. We're on two wheels, and it's across the line on our roof. Didn't hit anything. I didn't clip a tree or a mound or anything on that one. That was just hard cornering at speed with a high riding pickup truck, and I rolled it. Fortunately, we were still carrying momentum and still going in the right direction. And yeah, I made it across the line. Most of the damage done to the truck was on that final roll. I think it may have partly collapsed one of the front suspension. The front left suspension does not look too healthy on it, but yeah, on the whole, survived pretty well. Up next, we go from a big heavy-duty off-road truck to a little Toyota Corolla, a very old Toyota Corolla. Look at the size of the wheels on this. I think sort of two of the wheels would make up about roughly the width of one of the the wheels on the Chevy. You can imagine what the problems may be with the Corolla. Also, it's low to the ground. I mean, we've got a road car here. It is, I think it's rear-wheel drive, and it is incredibly oversteery. that was my first experience of the car. I didn't even make it around the first corner before spinning it around in a circle. Admittedly, you do tend to slide cars through the first turn here, but as you can see, trying to climb up the hill here, it struggled. It really, really struggled with traction. Whereas the problem we had with the Chevy was bouncing. The problem with this Corolla is there is just no rear grip whatsoever. It was snaking down the road, and I couldn't stop it in time. By the time I'd realised where it was about to head, I couldn't rescue it. Again, car is working. It's a pretty heavy, admittedly not that higher a speed impact on the front. Still a pretty heavy impact though. But the Corolla was working. Yeah, the real difficulty with this car was just the lack of grip. Again, I was trying to carry the same sort of speeds that I was doing in the Chevy, and you just can't. Again, working still car, but you just can't carry the speeds. There is nowhere near enough grip. It's not as bad off-road as I expected it to be. I mean, it's, again, never going to be as good as the Silverado, but it wasn't completely terrible across the bumps. It survived them relatively well as we come up towards the tunnel for the first time. I tried to be a little brave with the Corolla, got huge airtime, absolutely massive airtime. Yeah, you can't carry that much speed. It was amazingly actually working. I just assumed it was busted. It was working. After that clonk on the tree, the Corolla was still drivable, and then we fell into a river. Yeah, you can't take that that speed through the tunnel. I thought I could get away with it in the Corolla by hanging to the left. You can't. You really can't. You got some massive airtime, and then it even got bounced up on the landing. You're never going to save it. More troubles with oversteer, not rescuing it in time. That goes plummeting straight off the cliff into a ditch. Interesting reshape for the Corolla there, much more streamlined version perhaps. Yeah, again, it survived pretty well. You can see it is stuck in the ditch and I can't get it out of there, but it would have worked had it landed somewhere else. Another tough little car, this one. Takes a lot to kill it. This time, being a little bit more careful through the tunnel, not going for the big jump on the way out, and then I promptly run out of grip and find the camouflaged tree. I was expecting to have more problems with that tree, in all honesty, after the first episode. That was about the only time I found it with these cars. It's just not got the grip, the Corolla. Again, it's still working. Had it landed on its wheels, it would still be, well, it would still be moving. I'm just thinking the steering in the front of the car is a little bit broken. More problems with a lack of rear end grip. I'm snaking and fighting it, and then we're just gonna run a bit wide. No, but yeah, I spent a lot of time fighting with this car. That was a tiny bump on the tree, and the Corolla's round in a circle. Didn't take as long as I expected though, in all honesty. Once you got the hang of driving this car, you just can't really use a huge amount of... I mean, this is not a particularly powerful car to begin with. There's not a huge amount of power in this. It's not going to be as fast as the Silverado, let's face it. If they were driving in a normal situation, because it's just not got that much power. But there is just no grip, even with the low amount. I would hate to see this car with a ridiculous engine, because all it would do is just spin and spin. That you just can't put the power down on the car. It does get thrown about by the jumps. Yes, I mean, you'll see quite a few of these clips. The rear window was shattered. because yeah, it would occasionally get chucked around, and you would have to be careful coming up to these. There's no point going flat out. If you do, you're just going to clonk the front of the car on the other side and likely break something. So you will see me slowing down for these. And in the end, if you slow it down and get down the first part without clonking the bumper on the floor, you could probably carry more speed by being smooth out the other side. So that was what I was opting to go for in the Corolla. Really fighting this car to get it turned into some of these corners. Again, we're going wide, and even at 20 miles an hour, we're really struggling with the oversteer. It was another car I didn't really want to run risking the bumps on the inside of that turn. It could probably deal with them, but it would also probably kick the back end of the car out, and it would either go very sideways, most likely spin, and lose me a lot of time. Slowing it down through the tunnel and really making sure to keep it slowed down and keep it under control as we leave the other side. Then we can begin to pick up a little bit of speed, but we're still struggling with just the general lack of grip in this car. It's flat out. I did go flat out as we come across the finish line, and then I promptly get a tank slapper and park it in a tree. Yeah, the lack of grip is scary in the Corolla. The wheels, just look at the bicycle wheels it has on it, and then you begin to see why we are perhaps struggling with the grip on this car. A good fun challenge, I have to say, and without the bump on the tree at the end, it would have survived remarkably well. There wasn't a huge amount of damage done to the car. Our third and final vehicle for today is the BMW E30 M3. It's another road-going sports car. Now, this first run, you'll see that the car is on, I think it was the race suspension or sports suspension or something. The car's lowered. I later changed it and put it back to the normal suspension. Well, yes, this suspension may be better for driving on a track somewhere or on a tarmac road. Down here, I felt that it was causing more problems because it's a very rough terrain for the cars to deal with. So I thought just that little bit more ride height would be good, and it was better once I got the slightly higher suspension. Again, another rear-wheel drive car. This one a bit more powerful than the Corolla, but we have some better tyres, and it was better to drive. I get things a little bit wrong. That was on the bumps that I was having problems with, hence the reason why I changed the suspension. Amazingly, I got away with it by going around the outside of a tree. Really struggling, though, on the way up here. You can see how unhappy the car is, and in the end, I just spin it around in a circle. Yeah, I was really... That snapped the front steering as well. It couldn't get going with that suspension. With back to the sort of the normal suspension for the car, it was better. It was much easier to deal with these bumps. Still having a bit of a problem. This time I tried to tip it into the corner, not expecting to manage to roll it on there. That is a pretty nasty sort of nasty drop off the edge there, and it just caught the wheel, ripped the wheel off, and then rolled the car onto his roof. Didn't expect to see a road car particularly roll in that manner. That's not normally, because these got a nice low centre of mass. I managed to avoid some more trees this time. It probably would have been better to hit the damn things, because the BMW goes soaring off and gets itself wedged in another ditch. Again, the problem with the BMW, this time it was the bumps that were the problem for the BMW. It wasn't such the bounciness of the Silverado that kind of bounced it miles into the air. It was just throwing this car about quite a lot, making it difficult to drive. And we often found that the front wheel was getting snapped on some of these impacts. You can see there, it's spinning around on this one. Again, another pretty tough car. It's just the front wheels were a little bit fragile, which is as you would expect driving a road car down here. And it being quicker than the Corolla, you were going faster when you hit something, so you tended to do a little bit more damage. That time I was just a little bit unlucky. Clipped just a tiny clip on the tree as I went past, and as it sort of tore the bumper, it tipped the back end out, and I couldn't stop it in time, so we clonked another tree. Car's still working. We've got a flat tyre or flat wheel at the back. Yeah, not very circular, but it really didn't take too long for the M3. Once you were a little bit carefuler with the bumps, it wasn't too bad. We didn't have the same huge oversteer problems as you got from the Corolla. Yes, you couldn't really tip this into a corner. To be fair, there's only a couple of hairpins where you would ever really kind of boot it into a corner with a bit of help from the handbrake. You couldn't really get away with that. That was just asking for trouble. If you did, because it is very, very slippery down here with these rear-wheel drive cars, certainly. But yeah, there was a lot more grip in this, and certainly coming up these hills. I mean, there's more grip and there was more power in the M3, so it dealt with the hills better, and I didn't have the same problems. Effectively, you just had to be very careful down here. Had to be really careful through these bumps if you tried to take it flat out through there. I think I did it flat out or did it a lot quicker in the sunburst, and I could just chuck the sunburst at it. This, you would probably break something or fall off the road, basically. You just can't quite do it. It's not got the same ride height, not got the same strength, and being rear-wheel drive as well, it's not really got the same traction, so you have to be a little bit more careful. Again, picking up a bit of speed coming towards the tunnel, but again, not going to go flat out through here. Already seen the BMW Roll can carry a little bit more speed through here, but it's a nasty exit. The bumps on the exit there are really, really rather horrible. Now, this is probably the fastest part of the track. Can actually get some speed up across a little bit of the jump, a bit sideways as we go across the line. Tad more controlled than the Corolla. Not much more though. It's actually quite a nasty finishing section as well, as yeah, it's a pretty quick blind final corner that you sort of turn the vehicle in on. As far as damage goes, the BMW, I think there's slightly, one of the wheels has got slightly bent at the front, but most of the damage here was done after crossing the line. I clonked the wall in the tunnel, and that's what most of the front damage is done. You can see the front wheel there is not looking too healthy on the right hand side, and the rear bumper. All of that, I think, was done after crossing the line in the tunnel, as I just about kept control of the car. So the M3, it survived the course pretty damn well. Much like the Corolla, it survived better down. I mean, it is a really rough road in places. So yeah, it survived really rather well. On to the times, and at the top, despite crossing the line on its roof, the Silverado goes to the top of the table with a 120.8. Yeah, fell over a few times and got quite a bit of airtime in the run, but the Silverado is a quick car and it can deal with the harshness of this course. Further down, we find the BMW M3, a 130.3. It's not got good enough sort of suspension to deal with this terrain, and you have to be quite slow because the front wheels are a little bit fragile on some of the bumps. And right at the bottom we find the Corolla, unsurprising with its just complete and utter lack of grip and not really got a huge amount of power. But there we go, we have a new leader, and it is, perhaps unsurprisingly, a big off-road pickup truck. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. If you want to have a go with the mods that I used here, all the links will be in the description, so you can try them for yourself. But thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.